Welcome to Tremendous's RimWorld Chronicles. This is exactly what it seems to be. I play one of the greatest games on planet Earth, RimWorld, and then provide the details of what happened during my game here in a hopefully fun storytelling format. There are a few rules to this story, though. 1. If the main character dies, tremendous, the game is over. I'll come up with some sort of world-shattering excuse to tie up the story as neatly as possible, but yeah, I have main character syndrome. If Tremendous dies, I restart. 2. No two stories will be exactly alike. I may reuse names and locations, but RimWorld is amazing because of how it introduces situation and events in exciting and random ways that you have to adapt to or die. 3. I play to have fun, so I did change up some of the defaults to make the game more enjoyable for me. That's why RimWorld veterans will notice I start with 4 colonists and not 3. As an example, 4. Don't get too attached to the colonists. RimWorld is brutal. Let's get to the story. For this colony, I chose a tile in the grasslands, but that shared its biome with the tropical rainforest. There was an old settlement here, long ago called Senra. It had since fallen into ruins due to the ineptitude of the previous colonists and the harshness of the dual biomes. My colonists crash land here and have to make do with the scraps left behind by the failed original colony. Luckily for the colonists, there seems to be an abundance of wild smokeleaf plants in the area, so at least they won't be stressed. Most of the nearby factions are hostile, so we can expect to be attacked pretty often. But there's a friendly colony nearby as well that we can hopefully trade with in the future. Let's see what's in store for these colonists. Let's meet our colonists for this adventure. First up is Lord Tremendous. He is a sanguiphage, or vampire, for the layman. As a kid, he was an RimWorld army brat. His parents fought in whatever war was trendy at the time, but since he was too young to enlist, he made himself useful in other ways. He learned how to repair his parents' weapons and armor, and when they weren't looking, he taught himself how to use them. When he grew up, he put those skills to good use by becoming a mechanics engineer. There, he put his love of tinkering to the test and became known for his ability to solve mechanical problems. He made a lot of wealthy friends as he established himself, which is what put him on the doomed colony ship that got him in this situation. Hopefully, all the skills he's honed over his lifetime and his semi-immortality will see him through this plight. Our next colonist is a dirt mole named Hook Rubicite, but everyone called him Andersmith. Dirt moles adapted to underground living are excellent miners and enjoy being indoors. Being in the outdoors tends to slow them down, stress them out, and hurt their eyes. As a child, Andersmith had a talent for musical instruments and singing. He saw some success with it and was given advanced training with both instruments and vocals. He enjoyed the attention, as any child would, but it made him a little self-obsessed, which he carried on into adulthood. Andersmith has a very bad habit of showing off his over-the-top and indulgent bedroom to his co-workers and acquaintances. It's obvious he's showing off, and if he sees someone with a nicer room than him, he becomes unbearably jealous. As with most pursuits during childhood, music did not pay Andersmith's bills. In order to avoid becoming destitute, he took up forestry, which was an odd but high-demand profession amongst dirt moles. Despite his predilection against outdoor work, Andersmith thrived in the forest environment. His knowledge of soil, wind, rain, and the trees grew exponentially throughout his career. Working as a forester exposed Smith to a few darker aspects of humanity, the worst being his co-workers' use of drugs and alcohol. Smith has no tolerance for drug abusers and abhors the idea of using them himself. He was known to chastise those around him that he even thought had indulged in such vices. After a bad accident involving a co-worker, a large tree, gravity, and terrible placement of said co-worker, Smith got to see his first prosthetic arm. He marveled over how sleek, futuristic, and strong the limb made his co-worker, which blossomed a strong desire to obtain a prosthetic of his own. An outcome very likely to happen given the planet he finds himself on currently. Our third colonist is an impid named Vincent Carlson, but he only responds to vortex. Impids are humans that have evolved to thrive in the desert. They're very fast, can spew fire, and tolerate high temperatures well. They are somewhat frail though, and are known to have weak immune systems. Vortex's childhood was pretty horrible. He was kidnapped at a very young age and conscripted into a local militia. Given his age, he was trained to be a spy. When war inevitably broke out, Vortex spent years behind enemy lines, gathering intel and sabotaging his enemies. This stunted his traditional education but evolved his ability to socially interact with people. Eventually, as occurs often in war, Vortex was forced to defend himself, and to do so, had to become proficient with firearms. He also began learning how to mend his own wounds and improve his medical skills. The war waged for most of his childhood, and as his faction became more desperate, the atrocities they committed became more criminal. Eventually, they crossed a line that Vortex couldn't abide, which caused him to defect. His treachery was not taken well, and other agents were sent after him. Vortex ran for years, losing trust in most people and learning to rely solely on himself. This lifestyle gave him an iron will, but also made him cold and hard to approach. He spent long days without food or shelter, as he hid from would-be assassins, which developed a strong passion for food. Occasionally, Vortex is known to gorge himself when food is abundant. He usually has a stash of food on him that he adamantly refuses to share. In order to escape the war-torn planet, Vortex snuck onto an ill-fated colony ship, which led him to the situation he finds himself in now. Our final colonist is another dirt mole named Colonel Pyravel, better known as Blackshade. No one knows why his parents named him Colonel. Blackshade was never party of any military. People say that Blackshade was born with a book in either hand. As a child, he could never be found without a book on him and would spend every moment he could at the library reading everything in his reach. Unfortunately for Blackshade, he was one of the few people in his city that enjoyed books, which eventually led to the library being shut down and a spirit Halloween taking over the structure. Not one to be easily discouraged, Blackshade decided to write his own stories instead, which were ignored by publishers, but filled the gap the loss of the library had created in him. As an adult, Blackshade fully embraced commerce. He started off by running a used bookstore, and eventually expanded into comics and old print magazines. The success of his business caught the attention of other business entities in the city, who eventually welcomed him into their circles. Blackshade thrived in this environment, learning the tricks of the trade, whose palms to grease, and even how to analyze and speculate on the futures market. In order to keep up with his breakneck lifestyle, Blackshade started using the designer drug Wake Up, which was an ultra-concentrated energy substance he took in pill form. It allowed him to function for 22 hours a day, but was habit-forming. Blackshade wouldn't admit he was addicted to Wake Up, but he could hardly go a day without it. In order to expand his business ventures even further, Blackshade booked passage on a colony ship heading out towards the RimWorlds. He saw them as prime real estate for expanding his empire. Unfortunately for him, though, his ship was not destined to make it to his destination. No one knew exactly what happened, only that they were awoken mid-descent as their pods performed an emergency landing on this unknown planet. No one knew the name of the planet, or how long they had been in cryosleep, only that this wasn't their original destination or their usual company. Their pods landed unceremoniously in the middle of a cluster of ruined, massive buildings. The environment seemed to be a dense rainforest that transitioned into grasslands, probably due to some sort of environmental issue taking place on the planet. There was plenty of oxygen and options for shelter. Their emergency supplies seemed to have made it, along with some personal effects that would be useful in their current situation. The first thing they did was gear up in order to be ready to explore the buildings around them. One would become their home for the foreseeable future. The group decided that the eastern building would be the first one they checked out. Their reasoning was that it was the biggest of the structures and gave them the most options for a base of operations. Blackshade didn't care much which building they chose, just as long as he could get out of the sun as soon as possible. Something about the light on this planet was almost painful to him. Tremendous, armed with a plasteel combat knife and protected by a flax vest, flak pants, and a steel helmet, took the lead as they made their way to the closest door on the east building. Vortex and Blackshade armed themselves with a bolt-action rifle. Vortex grabbed the spare steel helmet, while Blackshade threw on the extra flak jacket. Andersmith was battling with cryosleep sickness and was too busy puking his guts up to be of much use. The party, not feeling any great loyalty to each other, left Andersmith to his sickness. Tremendous, never one for subtlety, kicked the dilapidated door down and stormed into the building, ready to face anything. To his relief, other than a few cobwebs and some trash, the room was empty. Vortex and Blackshade made their way in behind him, rifles at the ready. But there was no need. The area was dead. The next room was the same, as were the few after that. Nothing but old, defunct, non-operational machinery and discarded crates. Anything useful that may have been inside had long since decomposed. Tremendous realized that the doors were unlocked and stopped kicking them down, opting to use the handles instead. They discovered a long hallway stretched over 100 yards to the north, but decided to explore the south end of the facility first. The building was in rough shape, but to Tremendous' trained eye, it was structurally sound. They could make this work. Further in, they found some items that could be used for scrap metal, and even a few caches of electronic components that appeared functional. It was in the center of the facility that they made a real discovery, a fully operational, if not somewhat damaged, cryopod. The panel showed that someone was still inside, alive. The party decided to postpone opening the pod until they were better situated. No reason to freeze someone they couldn't properly feed or clothe. Blackshade and Vortex were intrigued by the cryopod and elected to investigate it further. They were hoping to glean a name or xenotype from the pod, so they could at least know who might be inside. Tremendous was immensely uninterested in whoever was inside the pod and elected to continue exploring the building. If they were going to survive, they needed to know if this building could be salvaged. So far, it looked good, but for all he knew, there was a toxic waste dump right on top of the building's water supply. He had to know for sure. Tremendous made his way further into the building alone, confident in his ability to deal with whatever trouble he might stumble across. He was the son of war veterans, after all. He could handle himself. The next handful of rooms were the same as the rest, empty, trashed, and full of junk. It would take a week just to clear out all the garbage, but once they did, this building would make a fine shelter until they were rescued. Tremendous was just beginning to contemplate which of his lawyers he would employ to sue the colony ship manufacturer as he absently opened a door into an unexplored room. The first thing he spotted was a second cryopod. The second thing he saw was clinging to the wall next to it, a massive mechanoid armed with a needle gun and instructions to kill. Tremendous's whole life flashed before his eyes. As in that moment, he was positive he was going to die, painfully. As the seconds passed and he wasn't torn to shreds, he slowly realized that the mechanoid was dormant. He had no idea how long the manhunting machine had been there, standing guard over the cryopod, but it must have been long enough for the machine to go into some sort of sleep mode. Tremendous counted every lucky star he had and quietly made his way out of the room, closing the door gently behind him. He marked the door with the universal sign for "No" as a warning to his fellow survivors. He certainly didn't want anyone going inside that room and waking the flesh-rendering device. It was a good thing the doctors at the lab don't let you eat or drink anything 24 hours before you go into cryo-sleep. Otherwise, Tremendous would need new pants. Far more cautiously, Tremendous continued to explore the ruined building. He explored 6 more rooms, opening the doors slowly and peeking inside before entering. All of them had thankfully been empty, other than the regular detritus and debris. Tremendous was grateful. If he ran into another mechanoid, he doubted he'd be as lucky as he was with the first. One room he entered was a large antechamber that led into a large storage area. Tremendous followed the antechamber and came upon what he thought was a huge anthill. As he got closer, he realized that the mound was in the shape of an anthill, but was more fleshy and wet than a regular anthill would be. Tremendous risked getting a little closer, which is when his luck ran out. Massive, nightmare locusts shot out of the hive and surrounded it, chittering and hissing warnings at him. Tremendous didn't speak locust, but he knew when something was telling him to go the hell away. Holding his hands up in surrender, Tremendous backed out the way he came, terrified that at any moment the locusts would rush him and he'd be in the fight of his life. Tremendous nerves were frayed, but he still wanted to explore a little more. Cautiously, but with greater haste, Tremendous made his way through more of the unexplored rooms, hoping he was making his way back towards the other colonists. He cursed himself a fool for wandering around in this building alone. Twice now he should have been killed, and twice he'd been lucky that hadn't happened. All he had to defend himself was a puny knife. What a fool he was. Tremendous made his way through more rooms than he could count, breathing a shaky sigh of relief every time there wasn't a monster waiting to kill him inside it. Instead, most of the rooms had nothing more than busted computers and obsolete machinery. He did find a small barracks that had 6 cots set up in it. The cots looked newer than the rest of the trash he'd discovered, and the mattresses, while dusty, looked more comfortable than the floor. He made a mental note of the room's location before continuing his search. As he made his way back towards where he thought the other colonists were, he spotted a room he hadn't explored yet and decided to try his luck one more time. To his surprise, inside the room was yet another cryopod. He had no idea what the original function of this building was, but for it to have 3 functioning pods inside of it was a stroke of luck that he could barely fathom. Tremendous was not a pious man, but he thanked whatever omnipotent being that was gracing him so. A quick inspection of the pod showed that the person inside was still alive, and that with just a few keystrokes, they'd be revived and released in minutes. Tremendous was tempted, but held off opening the pod until his group was better established. For all he knew, opening the cryopod was a death sentence. He left the pod and went to find the others. This is where we will put down the story for now. I hope you've enjoyed the first installment of Tremendous's RimWorld Chronicles. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or complaints, feel free to put them in the comment section below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks.